Hi everybody, welcome to Scuba Diving Magazine and welcome to Ask Mark, our scuba diving Q&A, where I, Mark, a former scuba diving instructor, now I think my title technically is HSE Media Diver, but I do my best to answer your scuba diving questions. So if you do have any scuba diving questions, pop them down in the comment section underneath this YouTube video. Use the Ask Mark hashtag, that gets your question and yourself featured in an up and coming video. Today I'm answering a question from Dariusz about twin set weighting. So that's not weighting for twin sets, it's the actual lead weight and how much you should sink. So Dariusz says, hi Mark, first I'd like to thank you for that you do, you're welcome. I have a question about weight in twin sets. Most of the twin set divers are only using weight attached to cylinders. That is much more comfortable, but it's impossible to drop any ballast on the event of an emergency situation. Is it just because DIR is giving us redundancy of two separated buoyancy control systems so we can easier deal with that kind of problem? Or we should have the possibility to drop a couple of kilograms. What is your opinion? What system are you using for your double? Many thanks. You're welcome. So my personal opinion is that you should always carry some ditchable lead. I always dive with some lead that I can just ditch on a weight belt, even if it's only a couple of kilograms. Personally, I tend to dive with a 5 kilo lead block with my twins in a V weight configuration with the back plate. The V weight fits between my cylinders and then the wing goes over the top of it. And then the rest of my lead weight just goes on a weight belt. It varies depending on salinity and the exposure protection. But yeah, let me grab my twins and you can see what I'm actually talking about. So as far as weighting goes, so I dive with twin steel cylinders. They're pretty common around here in the UK. Aluminium ones are great because they're a bit more neutrally buoyant, but when you're diving with all the exposure protection that we require here in the UK, then you just need to add more lead. So it makes sense to just have heavier cylinders because they're a bit stronger than aluminium and they tend to go to higher pressures as well. So a lot of the negative weight comes in the cylinders, but you still need lead weight to be able to sink, believe it or not, especially in salt water. So my first weighting option comes in the form of this. So this is a strip of lead that's coated, and this is called a V weight. You get V weights and P weights and probably some others, but those are the most common. Yeah, I think this is 5 kilos and it has those slots and they line up with my twinning bolts. So they're V-shaped, so they fit between the cylinders in that little crevice. It's a convenient place to have them. And then my wing would go over the top of that. And then you also have my back plate. So remember that your back plate is also trim weight if it's stainless steel. Again, similar to cylinders, you get aluminium back plates, which are lightweight, makes them great for traveling. However, if it's lightweight, it's not adding any negative buoyancy to your system, and we need to compensate for the positive buoyancy of our like dry suit and our undersuit. So stainless steel makes it much stronger, but it also makes it much heavier, so that adds a little bit of trim weight. It's nice and close to your body, so it's not too far away and causes you to roll around. So it's a really convenient place to add some lead, or correction, add some negative buoyancy, some weighting to your system. And yeah, so you even get like 6 mil. I think this is like a 3 mil, maybe even not. I mean, it's skeletonized as well, so it's cutting a bit of weight out. I should really swap it out for a different one, but this one does the job. Yeah, you can get really heavy 6 mil back plates. You don't find a lot of them, but yeah, that added thickness does add a bit of sort of weight to it. And then the rest tends to sit on a traditional belt. I've got some big old 3s and some 1 kilos. It's tricky here in the UK because we're a bit of a hybrid when it comes to like metric and imperial weight measurements. I try to stick to metric, so these are all kilos. I've got 3 kilos and single kilos, but out there, especially if you're like renting or if you're doing a course and you're using the school's lead, a lot of them have like 2 stamped into it, and especially when it's coated lead, it is really hard to tell. You can see the 2, but you can't work out whether it's 2 kilos or 2 pounds. So I just tend to stick to metric myself, so it's a lot easier to work out how much lead I'm actually diving with. But yeah, I always prefer to have some lead that I can ditch, just in case, because if I was diving and this was all the lead that I required, if something did happen, yes, I'm diving a dry suit, so that acts as a secondary buoyancy device compared to my my BCD wing. Should my should my dry suit fail, which is what I typically use to control my buoyancy when I'm under the water, should that fail, yes, I do have my BCD as a redundant backup. In the unlikely event that that should also fail, then I'd kind of have to take my entire rig off and get rid of my breathing gas, which I'm not a huge fan of. If it's likely that I'd make it to the surface, or at least make it to another air supply by taking it off, yes, I would certainly do it. My life is more valuable than all of my equipment. It's all replaceable and a good way to practice your search and recovery, along with like knots and lift bags. However, yeah, it's far easier just to carry a bit of lead. It doesn't have to be all of it or half of it. It just has to be enough so that you can attain positive buoyancy in your current setup if you ditch that lead. If anything, it's better if you can have a certain amount of lead that you can drop and just maintain your buoyancy without like plunging down to the depths or shooting up to the surface. If you drop like 3/4 of your lead, then yeah, chances are you are just going to shoot up to the surface, which has its own problems. So yeah, I try to at least spread it out as much as possible. If you can do like half and half, that's probably a fairly good like spread. But yeah, I'll always carry some lead in a ditchable position. We get this in single cylinder setups as well. A lot of BCD designs, you'll get either trim weight pockets, or some divers will just fit it to the cam bands. The cam band itself is 2 inches, so it's the same size, and you just thread your cam band onto the lead, or you thread the lead onto the cam band, I suppose. And that's a good way to move some lead, one, off of your hips if it's digging into your hips, and it moves it up towards your shoulders, which helps to bring your shoulders downwards if you find you're swimming in an upright position. By putting some up around your cylinder, then it can help to change your center of buoyancy and your trim. But it's nearly impossible to ditch it, especially if you threaded it onto a cam band. You want something that you can just grab, boom, go. Integrated weight pouches are okay. There are a lot of different systems. Some people just despise some systems. I touch wood, I've never had an incident of losing a weight pouch. I think a lot of it is user error in some cases, or even most cases, to be brutally honest, where a lot of these mechanisms, they are tested left, right, and center, and they can pull trucks with this mechanism when it's locked and engaged. So the chance of it just falling out is pretty unlikely. What's more likely is that someone just didn't engage the mechanism correctly. And I do like the concept of integrated weight pouches because it's kind of spread even further. So if you're struggling to maintain buoyancy, you can ditch a single weight pouch and you're ditching almost half of your lead, and then like see how it goes. If it's still in a bad situation, then you can ditch the second one and have even more positive buoyancy. Whereas with a weight belt, it's just kind of all gone. Yeah, by spreading it out, it like lessens your chances of having to ditch absolutely everything. But yeah, I always have some ditchable weight. The ideal setup is to have something that's perfectly neutrally buoyant at all stages of the dive. But whenever you're wearing exposure protection, that's never really an option because wetsuits compress at depth. So as they compress, your positive buoyancy decreases. Similar thing with your dry suit. Your undersuit compresses. That's why we need that chest valve to be able to inflate the dry suit. And yeah, it is just you do need something to compensate for that positive buoyancy. So yeah, I think we're always going to have that constant balancing act. But you see some of the divers back in the day where they're just wearing like their rubber suits, and yeah, they just dive without a BCD because you didn't really need one. You just weighted yourself accordingly. Yeah, I think with modern technology and modern exposure suits, it's not quite an option anymore. But yeah, I'll always have some lead as ditchable lead to attain positive buoyancy, so I don't have to ditch my breathing equipment. But yeah, it is an interesting question and something that you just kind of pick up over time and you just kind of figure it out, really. A lot of divers just work out their system that works for them and just run with that and tweak it a little bit as time goes on. But yeah, any other questions, by all means pop them down in the comment section underneath this video. Use the AskMark hashtag, that gets yourself and your question featured in an up and coming video. Otherwise, remember to head over to our website scubadivermag.com, check out all the awesome news articles that we do over there. Subscribe to the channel here on YouTube if you're not subscribed already. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.